Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Trading Bitcoin with your host, Tone Vase. To be honest, I wasn't really planning on doing a video. Supposed to be packing for Toronto. But what better way there is to procrastinate than do another Trading Bitcoin video? And for this episode, I am once again joined by Joe Saz of Block TV. Thanks for joining me on this one, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure.
Let me turn your audio up on my end a little bit. All right. Everything should be working. I think I got my audio and everything straight. All right, let's just go over the screen share. Unless you want anything to announce. What's going on in your world, Joe?
Just kind of closing out my vacation here pretty soon. I haven't even though I was supposed to take a break, I couldn't take my eyes off the charts. So, just excited about this weekly close and to see what we have coming for us this coming week. I love weekly closes. We always get that nice bit of action, 2 hours before the close, and I'm just pumped to see how we set ourselves up for the week.
All right, yeah, I think the weekly close just happened, right?
Yeah, we're minutes out.
All right, cool. All right, let's go into it. Did you take the trade? Did you take the bounce off the moving average at 11K trade, or you literally took this week off?
I kept some shorts open at 11.8 and 11.4, and I closed them out at like 11.360. So, and they were just push shorts. I'm talking no leverage, just to keep my hands a little, in the pie kind of thing. So I made $100 or whatever. I'm not really going to celebrate anything here, but I'm thinking about it. I mean, this move is kind of interesting. Do you want me to pull up a 15-minute chart?
Give me 1 second. Let me go to screen share. We kind of went out of just a quick plug. Check out tonebase.com. Obviously, the Unconfiscatable conference in February. We still have the financial summit going on in Bali, and looks like people are signing up for the options webinar. So this means I'm gonna have to disappear for about a week to put together the material in order to actually teach it. In a way, I was like, oh, if no one signs up, then I can avoid a week of work. But work never sleeps, so I will be putting together my options webinar, and I'll be in Dallas, Texas. People already asked in a live chat, what am I in Toronto? I'm in Toronto tomorrow, guys. Just go to my calendar right here. You see Canada on the 12th. I will be in Toronto, and then it's off to the US for a bid block boom. And then I'll be... my September and October are crazy. This is not like the October is not filled out yet, but I already know exactly where I'm going to be the entire October and some events in September. Anyway, all right, let's go to the charts. Oh, wait, before the charts, I sent out this tweet. It's amazing. Like, you send out these tweets that you think are going to get hundreds of likes and stuff, and they don't. But then you send out one of these. Did you see this?
Yeah, I just saw that.
I sent out this. Look, it has like almost 500 likes already.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm probably one of them. I thought that was pretty funny. I mean, that's a whole separate debate there. Constitutional Second Amendment stuff versus what they have going on out there. Lack of First Amendment due to.
Yeah, no, it's getting really crazy. Everyone is on the U.S. case. I mean, again, we can talk politics all day probably as well. I mean, I don't. I rarely hit that, but like there was a tweet. Like this is actually pretty true. Well, like somebody took this screenshot, and I think there's like a funny saying where the Second Amendment might actually be more important than the First Amendment. I think I heard a comedian say it because if you have a gun, you can kind of say whatever you like.
Yeah, 100%.
You don't really need the First Amendment if you have the Second.
Yeah, I hear you on that, and I think there's a lot of distraction going on. People get caught up in this idea that criminals obey laws, and so to me, the effectiveness of gun control on criminals will be as effective as the war on drugs, let's say. So, to me, this is kind of an obvious situation. I'm not happy about how many killings that we have going on, but that just kind of shows you that the NSA is kind of serves no purpose if that's what it was built to do, was spy on U.S. citizens. So yeah, I think this is an interesting time. We have a lot going on in the news. External variables that may or may not have any impact on the future of Bitcoin. I'd say socialism is probably the bigger bullish scenario.
Yeah, and my other tweet, I mean, I don't tweet that often. I don't know, I just don't want to have to read all those replies. But Charlie Lee sent this out. Did you see it?
Uh, I actually saw him say the opposite. Just it must have been hours later. He might have corrected himself.
He's basically saying in the 8 years, there's really been no Litecoin developers,
Yeah.
which, we knew.
Mhm.
Shalom Fry, he's a Bitcoin developer. He just did that, he just did all that stuff on Litecoin during the user activated soft fork, which was going to work anyway on Bitcoin. And yeah, they're all like Bitcoin developers that just, put their stuff there. Like, I'm not even sure why, but you could. And like, it's fine. I mean, I don't have a problem with Litecoin. I have a problem with people that try to convince other people that Litecoin is a good investment.
Yeah.
That's where my problem is. Like, I have no problem with Litecoin, like at all. But like the analogy that I gave, and like again, some of the replies are hilarious, right? But like, here's my analogy. It's like believing in the revolution of driverless cars while investing in crash test dummies. Because if driverless cars succeed, you really know, I mean, like that's the whole point. So there's no more accidents.
Yeah.
So while you need crash test dummies while you're developing new cars, that's not the investment you want to make if your investment is into cars and driverless technology.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
And one of the replies is hilarious. Where is it? If he hasn't deleted it yet, hold on. Just FYI, that's a really bad analogy. Driverless cars still need to be crash tested and still require crash test dummies for the validation of the NCAP ratings. Yes, I agree. That's why this is the analogy. That's not the investment, right? The investment is in early Tesla, in finding driverless technology. The investment is not in crash test dummies in order to get these cars on the road. But yes, they are being used. But that's not the investment. Yes, there are profitable companies making crash test dummies, right? But that's not like the revolutionary technology that's happening. And that's what Litecoin pretty much is. And again, I have no problem with its existence. I have no problem with traders trading any asset as long as it gives them, more money. But it's these people that believe that Litecoin is actually going to be relevant to society, and somehow a good investment. That's where I draw the line.
Yeah, I kind of think you can expand that thought to the wider space where there's no problem with experimenting with a new technology. It's not innovation that gets me upset about investors throwing money into all these projects. It's the fact that they're speculative, like highly speculative investments with delusional innovations backing them up, or in many cases blatant money grabs. I think I would actually classify Litecoin as a blatant money grab situation, a 100% piggyback off Bitcoin, an exit scam situation. Charlie Lee sold at the all-time high. I mean, it's a pretty clear cut, in my opinion, falls into the category of blatant money grab as opposed to a delusional innovation like Ethereum or Tron or something like that. So my problem is just taking people from money while you're taking money from people while trying to experiment. That's kind of my fundamental problem. Is I don't think some of these projects should have people throwing six-figure numbers at some pre-mined cryptocurrency so the founders can dump them and make all this money and try to fund their little micro ecosystem and probably fail in many cases.
Right. And I'm going to give credit to Giacomo Zucco, who kind of put this thought in my head, and it made so much sense that Satoshi created Bitcoin to be money. And by doing that, one of the mechanisms that was done is basically monetization of digital data. but he did it in a way that is scarce, that is immutable, that is censorship resistant, and decentralized. And since that day, all of these altcoins is one guy trying to monetize a line of code. And that line of code is usually encryption. So whether it's David Schramm, or I can't pronounce his name, right? And a lot of them are prominent people, right? Like Zuko, though he wasn't that prominent, right? Like ring signatures in Monero. It's basically, we have an interesting piece of encryption line of computer science code. This would be really, really interesting to use somewhere. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to monetize it as money, and it's going to magically spread around the world like Bitcoin did. No, that doesn't work, right? So this is why we try to explain to people, I don't care what you've done in your past life for the last 40 years, and no matter how prominent it was. If you can't understand the fact that is just a money grab for you to monetize a piece of code that prior to Satoshi would never even be considered for monetization. It would be a nice piece of encryption code to use in messaging. Then you're a scammer, and you may not realize it, but eventually you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And I've spoken to some altcoin founders, creators, and they don't realize it a lot of the time. I try to look through people a little bit and see if I can get a scammy vibe off of them. Some people, it's a little more obvious. I would put Derek Capo up there at the top of the list. I think he's I don't think he actually believes what he's doing is good for the ecosystem. I think he's just making that up. But I've met altcoin creators that just didn't understand that the decentralized component, anonymous transacting power, global instantaneous settlement layer, that's so important to humanity. And it's really an experiment that can only be done once. It can't be replicated. We can't have a silent launch of a decentralized peer-to-peer currency network that completely has the potential to dismantle existing financial architectures while being loud and proud about it. This was a very amazing way that this was done, very unique, and I think again an experiment that cannot be replicated.
All right. Once again, I'm being joined by Joe Saz of Block TV. We're about 500 and change live viewers. So let's move on with the charts. The month hasn't changed since the last time we discussed it. So let's look at the weekly chart. The weekly chart has flipped over. I do happen to have the stop and reverse points on here. We're not even close to breaking one of those bad boys. That's where Socrates becomes bullish from a weekly perspective because he really likes to trade that system. I will pay attention to it. It's not cluttering my charts too much, so it's not bad. We pulled back at the end of the week, but we did rally, in the last couple of hours.
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's what's always crazy about the weekly close. It's like it's always the last couple hours that make the weekly candle. There's a little bit of action during the week, but we got pushed from a very distinct inverted hammer into something a little more neutral looking of a candle, and that was all done in the last 2 hours of the week. So I tend to notice that type of activity, and I think it's interesting to see how we're painting the setup for coming weeks.
And this candle is now like a borderline candle. If we had closed below 11.3, it would have been very clear as a bearish candle. But somehow we rallied and we closed higher. This was the highest weekly close for the week. So while the shadow was a little bit longer than the body, just the mere close of the body at yearly highs makes me, keeps me neutral. Yeah. Like I would have been pretty bullish if we had closed in the $12,000 range. I would have been pretty bearish if we had closed, under that Fibonacci line, even though I don't care that much about it. It's just, a line that's there and it's noticeable. If we had closed, below 11.3, I'm leaning bearish. If we had closed above 12, I'm leaning bullish. Closing here right at 11.5, I'm totally neutral. And let's see what the next candle brings. Now, this next candle, I would need it to go above 12,000 and maybe even 12.25 or 12.3 for me to be bullish from a weekly perspective. So the best case scenario for me as a swing trader is a neutral week. I want a week with the least amount of volatility. I want this week to be somewhere between 11.4 and 11.6. Like, I don't want to see price outside of that range. And finishing this as a tight candle, and then next week, that means I would be bullish as of 11.6 because I would need next week's candle to break the high of this week's candle. And I would love for the high of this week's candle to be significantly lower than last week's high.
Yeah, I think that's a tough ask right now. I think we still have enough volatility to make this a little bit of a wild time. Yeah, this is what I was waiting for, just because that weekly is so indecisive. Um, yeah, I mean, this is looking a lot more clear to me. The 1 to 4 candle pullback is looking pretty good. I mean, it's looking bullish at this point in time.
Yeah, it looks like it ended. It looks like the
Yeah.
1 to 4 candle pullback has played out. It would have been a cleaner trade directly off of the moving average, but it would have had to pierce 11K. The 11K was nicely defended as the price bounced off of 1180. You know, in a perfect world, the price comes down to say 1120, and then a nice strong bounce off that. I like this 1 to 4 candle correction. This is definitely not the candle. Normally, I say, hey, red 2 going below red 1 is a short trade on the daily, but not in this environment, right? Because on a weekly scale, you're neutral, and on a daily scale, you're dealing with a pullback. So this is where I'm watching to time the bounce. Like, if I was shorting this move, I'm trying to short off the 9, not here. There's a potential to add to that trade, to the short trade, and a red 2 going below red 1, but I would have needed it below all kinds of support levels. And the two major support levels here are the the parabolic SARs, which I don't normally use, but maybe I'll start more often now that Socrates is on my channel, and the moving average. So right now, I am leaning long based on a daily scale with a neutral week. Ideally, I want to see a price flip to a green 1 and then a green 2 going above a green 1. I would like that to happen with the least amount of volatility. And ideally, the green 2 is breaking out above a green 1 as we're crossing 12K. And that makes me incredibly bullish. I become a bull on a green 2 above a green 1, above that swing high. But also as a swing trader, had I been watching and sitting in front of the market yesterday, I would have been trying to buy at support with strength. Would I have gone in at like 11.3, 11.4? Maybe, and it would have been a very small position. I would add to that position on a green price flip. I would add to that position again on a green 2 above a green 1. And I would add to that position again on the break of the prior swing high. Now, several of those can happen at the same time. So if I was swing trading and I intended to put X into a bullish trade, I would be in 1/4 and I would be in for 1/4 at each of those other 3 potentially upcoming moves. That make sense?
Yeah, to me, 100%. I mean, it's as simple as have we created a higher low, and if so, and of course that would be a pretty bullish looking scenario, especially considering that this higher low is so close to the local high that any breach of that, I would start to get really nervous if I was in a bearish position, a short of any, like if I was sitting with money outside the market, anything like that. And once we start breaking that 12. Right there, 1233. I think even potentially, if we can just sit in the 12 for a little longer, because the past number of times that we've done that, we've been rejected. But we've had that same type of rejection in by the bulls in the low 9Ks, mid 9Ks, and then again every time that we start facing steep rejection, we keep getting bought out, and that's why I love paying so much attention to that 15-minute chart. Because I think that's where you see a lot of the psychology in the buying and selling of this asset. And there are people right now that refuse to let this thing go down. So this higher low is going to be looking good. I'm really hoping that we continue this upside activity, and if we break that 9, then to the upside, if we break that 1233 mark, I think it could be very dangerous for the pairs. I mean, just looking across, what were the previous highs? It looks like around 13K. Yeah, so 13K just about, and then down to 12.5. So I mean, if we can't break this higher high, then I'm gonna rest a little more comfortable believing that that was a bear trap back in the end of April, and then the mid June sorry, June, early July range.
Yeah, like the break of this high, like the dominoes are probably gonna just start to fall. The
Hmm.
break above 12K, now we're too close to the prior swing high and too close to the swing high before that. So this is why I become bullish, at this break. I mean, if we go to like 12.2 and immediately start to crash, this is why we have stop losses, right? I
Yeah.
mean, again, I trade my style, everyone else trades their style. So I got a question in the live chat, um, and says, Tone, if someone has no Bitcoin now or wants to increase their position, would you recommend they buy or wait, but risk buying at a higher price of 20K? My view on this has never changed. Tyler Jenks and I disagreed a lot. My view is if you are planning to hold Bitcoin for the long term, the best time to buy is always yesterday. I've said this in forever. You should always have some Bitcoin. The best example I can give, or the best two examples I can give, is the reason why I'm here to begin with. One is Cyprus, and two is Greece. In Cyprus, they froze the bank accounts and they confiscated 50% of everything above 100,000 euro. So therefore, my view is it looks like $100,000 in safe at a bank. Anything above that, have it somewhere else. Maybe even gold coins. The stock market is a great idea, and Bitcoin is an amazing idea, right? Greece is a different example. They didn't steal your money in Greece. They just shut down the banks and said you can only withdraw $60 a day. So it's not even that, oh my God, I'm late to the party, I want to buy Bitcoin. Like usually when there's a saying goes, when it rains, it pours. When you decide to buy Bitcoin, your bank could be shut down and you won't even have the money to do so. Bitcoin is too important not to have. If you are planning to have it for a long time, there is nothing wrong with holding on to it because it is still too unpredictable. So yes,
100%.
you should certainly have a hodl position for a long period of time, and then you can try to time it as best you can.
Yeah, I agree. I actually learned the lesson the hard way in this particular run up, not to have some hodl stack. I um I mean, I just thought that this thing was not going to jump to 14K. I mean, 6K 5800 should have been, I think, a harder resistance than it was. And not to mention every resistance point after that. So every time that, again, and I mentioned before that I felt like there was a number of times where the bears were getting psyched out in this entire run, and that's fine. And there's nothing wrong with that. But my point is that it's important to have a hodl stack for more than one reason, not just financially speaking. Oh, I could have made a better trade right now, and made some more profit if we were going to make a move to the downside. It's also, it combines that fact that you're saying that at any point in time, we think that we're immune to all these things, but from a government, but they're happening, right? Greece, it happened. Venezuela, Cyprus, you were just discussing, they took money from people's accounts, and that includes people that were of retirement age. That wasn't just successful individuals in their prime working days and prime working years. That included people in retirement, if I remember correctly. So 100% agree with all your points there, and just add to that, just don't be greedy as a trader.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And look, guys, it's possible that because I'm a hodler, that part might have, it's possible that it influenced me a little bit, that I wasn't in a rush to buy on this bull run when we broke above 5K. I mean, I was, people forget that when we crashed, I should go to the weekly. People forget that when we crashed, I was one of the first people to buy. I was one of the first people to buy this crash at 4,000. But I just thought that it would end by 6.5. That's why when I bought here, I sold there. And then I was looking for a bigger pullback to buy back, and the bigger pullback never came.
Yeah.
And because I'm involved in a hodl position, it didn't upset me too much, other than, I pride myself on making good calls, and I didn't exactly, I wasn't exactly stellar in this run up like I was the prior 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I don't think anyone who thinks that they called this run up, even people that called the bottom, they didn't call this run up. I think this was completely out of the ordinary, completely unexpected, very consistent with Bitcoin, of course. And I'm not going to really give people much credit for, and I don't think you could really call it. Actually, there's one person, Peter Brandt. He did say that we're going parabolic before we did, and I think that was an amazing call. Now the question is, A, how did he come up with that? And B, what happens now? Again, we've broken that parabolic uptrend now, and I think historically Bitcoin's taken a pretty nasty fall afterwards. So I'm a little curious about where we're headed next. It's like you have to watch this every day, in order to know what's going on with Bitcoin. Long-term prediction is a very difficult task. So, this is a constant, always got TradingView on my phone, open in the tab. Can't keep my eyes off it, even when I'm out of the house.
Yeah, we have another good question that is now asking us, well, if you're going to hodl, you're going to hodl until when? And that's a good question. And the answer to that is also pretty straightforward. You're going to hodl it until you are happy to sell some of it to buy something you really want, and it won't upset you if Bitcoin goes parabolic immediately after that purchase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would add, I would say hodl holds until Bitcoin goes to zero. That my hodl position from now on is, if Bitcoin goes to zero, my hodl goes to zero. If Bitcoin goes to, X whatever on the high end, $1 billion, I'm holding till then.
Okay. So my answer kind of encompassed that, right? So let's say, Tone, how long should I hodl? Well, you're gonna hodl again, like I said, until you're willing to spend it on something else that you will not be upset over if Bitcoin then goes to $300,000 a coin, right? So if Bitcoin keeps going down to zero, then you're probably not going to want to buy anything anyway, right? But if it goes up, and let's say Bitcoin got to 25,000, and one Bitcoin is at 25, let's say one Bitcoin got to 40,000, and you really want to upgrade your 10-year-old car to a nice BMW. So you sell one coin, you buy a BMW, and if the coin then goes to 100,000, you're not going to be upset about it because you were waiting for 40,000 to buy the BMW. And that will make your life very, very happy.
Yeah, I'm kind of I would encourage people to be more survivalist in their mentality. Like, don't dream of Lambos, dream of a couple things that make you happy. And I really think Bitcoin's a good long-term hold. In addition to a flippening of the US dollar relative to Bitcoin, I see a big paradigm shift where currently we have money equals power, right? And I think it's kind of important for us to have this, big flippening in terms of class and try to get some people that have known the grind into positions of power. And I think that's only going to come through financial authority. So I encourage hodling for more than one reason. I very much believe that people should understand what they're holding on to and the power it can give you in the future.
So I don't mess around with these charts like off air, right? So I'm not actually cheating. This green line was drawn off of a very specific point. This green line was drawn off the lowest price of this candle. That's how I drew this green line. And it was great that it got touched and rejected, supported here, breaks down, rejected, breaks out beautifully. And we came within like $5 or something on the back test. That is gorgeous.
Yeah,
This tells me two things. One, there is a high probability that this is going to rally the price past this high. And two, if it doesn't, and we come back to this green line, there is a high probability that we will then break down.
Yeah. That kind of brings back to mind my assessment of, kind of looking back at local market patterns, and Bitcoin has a strong history of double topping and breaking down. So I would agree. If we double top in this case, I mean, we have a local double top here with a breakdown. So, going all the way back to early 2018, all the way through 2018 into probably maybe August 2018, we did a number of double tops and breakdowns. I mean, if that's what we're doing again, and after a parabolic run, I'm going to assume that we're probably repeating history, because obviously with Bitcoin, we kind of compare it to itself. Is my general procedure. So if we double top here, it looks like I'm not going to be too optimistic. If we get rejected by 12K again, I just don't think we can keep getting rejected at that price without a violent move to the downside.
I'm really not expecting a double top at 12K. I'm just not. If this makes it back to 12K and goes above it, I am expecting a breakout.
Yeah.
I would be very surprised if we get that double top. Now, if we are not, if we're going to get rejected and go down, I'm expecting that, again, below this channel. Maybe we can go as high as 11.8, but I doubt it. Even on a 4-hour closing basis, right? I would expect this def cross to hold and reject us in 11.65 range, 11,650.
Yeah. So 4-hour. We just had that last candle going into this new one was the last pump before the weekend. So the week close. So I don't know. I don't typically if I was looking at this with fresh eyes, and I'm just giving you what I see. I see us being rejected right now by the short and intermediate term moving averages. Probably an incoming test of the long-term moving average. You got a nice trend line there. Breakdown from I guess that's kind of a pennant formation. So I don't really. In addition to that, a bearish crossover of the is that the 50 and that's the 30 and the 50.
30 and the 50, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, those I don't typically trade with those indicators set those ways, but right now until we make that higher local high,
it should really be 20 and 50. There's really no reason why I should be using the 30.
Until we break that higher high, I'm not going to be very confident in a bullish breakout scenario. But again, look at that support in the 9K range. I mean, we were just supported so heavily there. I think it would be enough to instigate a lot of bullish psychology, considering this being a very big accumulative area in the 5-figure range. So that's definitely a bullish psychological element in play.
Yeah, the other part here is this bottom trend line is going down very quick. Mm-hmm. And the price of Bitcoin isn't going to go there straight down. So even if it goes at the same speed as it did here, that's still going to, that would still take us to the 7.6.
Yeah, well, it does look like we've already been rejected by the top end of that of your descending channel there.
It really does.
Yeah, the next stop would, clearly be low 9K support. If we hold that, then I think we are, again, like I was, referring to the 2018 market cycle, descending triangle pattern with 9K being the new 6K.
Yeah, here's my problem with this, right? For the same reason, I don't think 12,000 is going to be resistance again. And if we go above 12,000, we're probably going to 15. I have to apply the same logic to the $9,000 low. It's already been the low 2 and like this made it to 9.6. This made it to like just above 9,
Yeah.
and this was like 9.3. So if we get back into this 9.3 range, for the same reason I don't believe 12,000 is going to be resistance again, the logic has to apply. 9,000 is not going to be support again. We're going to break right through it.
See, I agree with you. Like, I 100% agree with you, but Bitcoin has one different variable that is hard to predict, and that's hope. And I think that's the reason why we skipped along 6K for a year before finally breaking through it, or more than a year. We skipped along that area for, I guess it was probably
It
February
was
when we
about 9
first.
months. It was a little less
Yeah,
than
so less than a year, but it was the hope in this asset. We have hodlers, we have stacking sats, we have all these different things that keep Bitcoin's heart beating in terms of price action, no matter what is happening. Chinese FUD doesn't touch us. We're stone cold now to all this external FUD, right? So Bitcoin does have one thing that I do believe makes it unique than another asset, than other assets, and that's hope. And I do believe that the reason why we have these long, drawn-out crashes from parabolic up cycles is because of that hope, and people refuse to give up on the idea that Bitcoin is going anywhere other than the moon, right? This is all moon dreams, hope, and I'm not just talking about make money hope. I'm talking about cypherpunk movement. I'm talking about just all of it, right? So that's the one reason why I'd say I do believe that a bounce at around 9K is absolutely on the table, because and a lower high probably from 9K to 10.8, 10.5, something like that before a breakdown through 9, and then probably a test to 7. But I still think that we need, even 4,500s on the table, because that's when we really broke this entire market, out of a bear market and just sent to skyrocketing. So I still think that we need to establish some support along the way. There's a couple areas where it looks optimistic, but yeah, I'm not going to rest all my weight on that. Absolutely not. And I'm going to agree with you. 9K, if we hit it again, it very well could break down violently. And I think the next range is probably 7,500 as a realistic target. And that's kind of where we started building that head and shoulders in May to June. So I think that was a nice little accumulation area. But again, we'll have to see what the psychological scenario looks like, how people are defending Bitcoin on crypto Twitter, all that. I mean, I like to pay attention to everyone's as many. I use people as indicators is what I'm trying to say, and I want to see how we react in those price areas.
So another interesting comment. Well, it sounds as Tone and Joe. I'm used to only do TA, but you really should do some fundamental analysis. Fundamental analysis is not what most people think it is, right? Like Willy Woo takes fundamental analysis to another level, because his fundamental analysis is still, technical metrics. What a lot of people confuse, guys, news stories is not fundamental analysis.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. Fundamental analysis in traditional markets, a lot of hedge funds and money managers, they have fundamental analysts. These fundamental analysts decompose the financial statements of the company. They send out, scouts, watch billions, they like pay employees of those companies to tell them what's going on. They'll send an intern they'll send their intern to be an intern at one of these companies to find out what's going on, right? This is fundamental analysis. Most people confuse fundamental analysis with news stories. That's not what fundamental analysis is, right? Fundamental analysis is a lot more work and a lot more tedious than technical analysis. And mistakes are huge, because not only do you have to understand the numbers, you have to be certain that the numbers are legitimate. And we all know how much bullshit is going on in these exchanges with exchange rates, right?
100%, yeah.
One fundamental analysis number that is not bullshit is, when you do buy Bitcoin on Google, like you and I did, Joe, right? And that gives you a fundamental analysis metric. Now you need to figure out, what does it mean, right? Because just because you have metric, it doesn't mean you understand what it means for the future of price. Now, someone else mentioned something also very interesting. Well, Tone, you can't type buy Bitcoin in Google in Chinese because, first of all, the Chinese don't even have Google. They have their own version of it because they're locked down. And two, they don't type in English. And we heard a lot of stuff that the Chinese are involved in. This is why the Tether volume is so high and everything is going on with Hong Kong and people might be scared and they're starting to move the money. So yes, we have a fundamental metric like Google Trends, but they don't, but you're right. That doesn't cover China, right? So now you need to, get your Chinese friend that understands Bitcoin and have him investigate, the maybe WeChat provides you a Google metric, right? Like that's fundamental analysis, not reading news stories.
Yeah, reading news stories is kind of it's something. It's a cherry on top. It's not really the pie, right? Two things that I'd like to say to what you said. One, to me, the fundamental analysis is asking the question, right? What is the catalyst that incites people to buy or sell an asset? That's one main question on a fundamental level that you need to be asking yourself every day. Why is the value of this asset that I'm looking at greater than zero? What causes people to want to accumulate this scarce asset? That's point A. I guess point B. I think I might have lost it a bit. Fundamentally speaking, I guess let's leave it at A for now. It'll jump back to me in the middle of your next speech.
Well, let me add to that, right? Because someone else just commented. I was under the impression that Jimmy, Giacomo, and the law crew provide the fundamental perspective. Yes, we do provide the fundamental perspective, but at a much bigger scale than short-term trading. The fundamental perspective that Jimmy, Giacomo, myself, the law crew, we provide the fundamental perspective that shitcoins are garbage, that ICOs are scammy, and that Bitcoin is here to stay for the long haul. That is at such a big level. This is the HODL position. So that, yes, that is a fundamental perspective, but it's on a big level. It's the same thing that I've been saying on a I can't really do true fundamental analysis on gold to help you in short and intermediate term trading. But I can do the fundamental analysis on gold to try and convince you that silver will never be money again because of technology, because gold can scale. So if you're going to hold precious metals, dump the silver, buy the gold. But if you're going to short-term trade gold for silver or both of them for dollars, then you need to do more short-term fundamental analysis that involves mining data, industrial data, all this kinds of stuff.
Yeah, like how much gold is being accumulated by companies for scientific purposes. A lot. Yeah, I agree. It's just like that rabbit hole of analysis. It goes a lot deeper than people really imagine. I mean, any rabbit hole needs to be at least examined. We, as an analyst, we leave no stone unturned. So it's like, and you even get mocked for it. We have to explore all these possibilities. Tethered, Tulip Trust, Craig, CSW, fake Toshi Tulip Trust. Like all these things need to be looked at under a microscope, and that's the fundamental analysis. It's where's the money coming from? Well, yeah, Google Trends. What you brought up a great point. China's billion people. Yeah, if they're not using Google, we could be lacking some serious data, and that was an excellent point. Did you get any results yet, or is that something that's in the on the waiting list?
I don't have time for it. I'm just here to make people think. So the same person that asked the original question, right? Because again, it's a dynamic. So we're gonna stay with this for another minute. He says, I was meaning there are really big geopolitical moves everywhere. Of course, I have no single insider, right? But you have to decipher those geopolitical events and their relation to Bitcoin, whether they are random headlines just, to make a headline, whether they're actually moving the price, and at what scale. Now, I also believe that there are geopolitical forces that are going to drive Bitcoin up exponentially. I realized this in 2013 with the Cyprus event, right? And that's why I'm a hodler. So it really depends. Like, if you see, if you're watching the European Union and you're starting to get the feel that the European common currency is about to break up into its components of, the Deutschmark and the franc and the lira and, the drachma, like that's a major political event, and that's going to send Bitcoin through the roof. Like if there is a single geopolitical event that's not going to necessarily cause, a giant world war, and at the same time be beautiful for Bitcoin, like the Eurozone breaking up its common currency can basically send Bitcoin 100x in a week.
Mm. Yeah, this is the one thing that I would say. I want to believe all this stuff. I want to put weight behind it, but the one thing that I just can't get over is the fact that we have countries protesting, right? Getting shot at with rubber bullets, gas cans, and all that stuff. People getting bloodied in the streets of their country, against the police, and they're still not choosing Bitcoin. We should have seen an exodus of the French in their entire monetary architecture move into Bitcoin if they really wanted to shut the system down. All they needed to do was get some accounts and buy some Bitcoin, start a peer-to-peer network, and pay each other and adopt what should be the Bitcoin kind of adoption method as a peer-to-peer network of transacting anonymously and instantaneously, and then set an example, right? We have numerous scenarios where this can be done. We have Hong Kong, France, Venezuela, Turkey, and I'm sure Zimbabwe, Turkey, Cyprus. I remember Andreas Antonopoulos was telling his mother to buy Bitcoin to hedge, and it saved her. So the thing that I want to see is this actually happen in a place where we have educated people with access to information, learning this, and then acting upon that education. And we haven't seen that yet. That's the one thing that pushes me away from the hyper Bitcoinization as a result of some sort of collapse of fiat, oppressive government regime, etc. I'm really curious what's going to be the thing that really gets people into Bitcoin and preferably voluntarily, but more likely kicking and screaming, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. All right, we got to take another question, Joe. Peter asks, Tone, what do you think about the NVT signal? Will it work, and will we see a correction? I am not an expert at the NVT signal, unfortunately, but Willie Wu was on the show about a week ago, and we talked a lot about it. He no longer likes the NVT signal all that much. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the chart. We can go to woobull.com. We can go over to here. We can go over to charts.
I think he liked it. Well, didn't it? Wasn't Willie and Murad calling at the bottom for a little while as a result of their NVT?
Yeah, but Willie no longer thinks the NVT signal is all that accurate. And this is why, he spends all his time doing research. And you can see how the NVT signal is, I think that's the right chart that I'm looking at, but there's a couple of versions. And I was waiting for this to be a little bit lower, and it never made it. Look how much lower the NVT signal was, back in February when we dipped down to 6K for a minute, versus how much higher it was when we fell all the way down to 3. And now we're still kind of overbought. Yeah. And Willie already said that the NVT signal that is in TradingView, he doesn't use it at all. That's this one. That might be the same one, actually. So he believes that this isn't really accurate anymore, and he doesn't use it all that much. So he's moving on to other metrics because he feels, and he's basically the expert in NVT signals. So Peter, I strongly recommend just scrolling down my videos to my videos from last week and find my last video with Willie where we talked about NVT like we usually do.
Yeah, it's tough with indicators. I learned from a wise man that you don't want to oversaturate yourself with indicators, and that's why I spend so much time focusing on that fundamental question: where's the money coming from? I think is pretty much the fundamental question wrapped up nicely. And it's hard for indicators to express that. I think indicators are for traders. I almost look at indicators as a way of predicting how people will react to a particular scenario. So if we see a 9 sell, we know everyone that's trading sequential is going to sell, right? If we see a rejection at a moving average, a popular, say a 200 or a 50 or something, then we know that there's a lot of activity likely to happen at that point in time, rejection or support. So I look at indicators as more of to let me know what other people are going to do, more so than what than what addresses that fundamental question. Yeah, right now I was kind of expecting this move into the week to have a little more activity, but we're already an hour in and we're going sideways. It's obviously we have quite a few more hours left in the week, but I'm really curious. I just think that we're in such a weird zone. My momentum indicator keeps switching me in and out of bullish and bearish momentum, right? It's just such an unstable market right now. No liquidity in the book. This thing is just moving up and down. But anyways, your sequential is looking good. I have been leaning against that with some weight for a good bit of time now. And as you well know, I definitely do that on the 15-minute chart. I think the 15-minute chart with the sequential is amazing.
Oh, did I just lose like my?
Oh,
I
might
see.
might need to control
If I
Z or
go
something.
backwards, am I gonna get to where I was?
I'll see if there's a question in here.
I wonder if I can get, because I don't have my template set. Oh, I did. Okay, there it is. Okay, cool. I gotta learn to use templates better. They're very useful.
Yeah, I don't use them at all.
Yeah, you can basically like preset your indicators and I think you just preset your indicators and your oscillators, and then you save it as a template, and then you can like click on that template and everything just comes back.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's nice. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, yeah. Jane comments in the comments that another trader and YouTuber says that NVT signal doesn't work as of April.
mhm.
Willie seems to agree. He doesn't like it anymore either. Hey Joe, I'm gonna hand it off to you for the 15-minute chart and any other time frames on Bitcoin, and then we'll
Cool.
glance at alts and maybe traditional markets. We'll see. Though
Yeah,
nothing
cool.
changed there. Markets are closed. But we're gonna be wrapping it up soon. I was just gonna make a quick video today. Though
Yeah,
now we went off in this rabbit hole about fundamentals. Right,
yeah.
go for it.
Uh, Always a pleasure to answer any question. And I love to explore a lot of speculative action. So this is a look at my 15-minute chart. This is familiar to anyone that watches Block TV. Well, here's your 9 in action right here. This gave you a good indicator. And again, you always want to be careful on small time scales when you're trading. This would have scared the hell out of you, but you gotta pay attention. This break of the 200, we're breaking down. Right now we're looking again. This is tough to tell. I'm not really seeing anything. This is the thing that, all right. So let's talk about what I look for when I'm trading on the 15-minute chart. I want to see what support looks like. And this is exactly what support looks like. High volume, a serious rejection of a downside move. And let's quickly switch this to an hour chart so we can see this happen more often. So right now, stuff like this makes me bullish, not just not just for the next 5 candles or something, as obviously that's how this played out, but as we continue. So if you look at how we, I guess let's see if there's anything crazy up here. Steep rejection, steep rejection. So this is basically what we're looking at in a hammer over here, just spread over the course of a number of hours. So right now we've been steeply rejected at all these critical areas that would really shift us into bullish momentum. And now we've been having these really serious sell-offs. So I'm curious, that thing that we talked about last week called fanning, where the trend lines start to get weaker and weaker in angle. So an example would be a trend line along this area would be a bit more sharp until broken, right? A trend line right now, and we don't really have enough information to really make a legitimate trend line, but it's clearly weak. It's clearly after breaking this trend line and breaking down into another trading territory. This trend line is now getting weaker, right? And it's obvious because we're reaching these high points and we're now getting rejected. So the more we fan out, the more likely, in my opinion, we're probably going to have a break to the 9K range. And but it's moves like this that are going to change my mind. As long as we have moves like this that keep preventing the price from serious, like I'm talking volatile downside activity, that's what I'm going to be looking for. This is a good example here. This is in the low 9Ks, like I was explaining. It's going to be these candles that I'm paying close attention to dictate the future of the market on a local time scale. So again, I'm going to say I'm going to add a couple more days to my vacation. I'm not going to be trading like crazy for another maybe 2 days, but then I'm back. So right now, I mean, just looking at this on an hourly, fanning out, we'll have to see how this trend line plays out. Things aren't looking great to me. I think, as far as the other timescales are concerned, we hit the daily, we hit the weekly. That's what throws me off about this. On a 12-hour, the last bit of price action was in the final 2 hours of the candle. Let's say the hourly. It was right before the weekly close that we made this pump. So I'm not very optimistic that this is enough to paint us out of a bearish technical picture. I'm going to keep paying attention, but I'm not convinced that we've been saved just yet. Not yet, but again, this is looking pretty good. This too is looking really nice. Yeah, that's pretty much. I guess that would be my quick take on what I'm looking at there on the small time scale. It looks like I'm neutral. We've been saved a little more than I'd want. If I wanted to enter a short position, I'd want to see us just start tipping. I'd say jabbing at these areas, these price targets like the low 11Ks right now, and doing damage to them. Right now, it's just we have so much bullishness. I just can't get over that.
Yeah, and you know what I was gonna look at? Maybe I'll just throw it out there for other people to look into. So Bitcoin dominance is on a weekly 9, and that could cause a little bit of a pullback. And we're already seeing, Ethereum is starting to rise. Litecoin is coming up on its weekly 9. That could rise. Bcash, that's a special kind of garbage, so that will probably keep falling. And but what we also need to keep an eye on, if Bitcoin continues to pull back, is not just Bitcoin dominance, but Bitcoin dominance overlaid with the total market cap. Because as these shitcoins, like basically, here's the question. Has the rise, we all know that Bitcoin has been rising all year, actually for 2 years now, right? Bitcoin dominance has been rising for 2 years. Now, the price of everything has been falling for 2 years, but in the last year, Bitcoin has been rising at the expense of alts.
Mm-hmm.
So the real question is this. I don't know, because I haven't looked at the chart of total market cap. Is total market cap rising right now or falling? Is the exodus of shitcoins in 2019 bigger than the rise of Bitcoin in 2019? And that could be a very critical question on whether new money is coming into the space or not.
Yeah, I don't think new money, that much of it at least, is coming into the space. And I think you're right. We're going to get an answer here pretty soon. once altcoins, if Bitcoin continues to gain dominance and altcoins continue to, in probably some cases end up at zero, um, what does that mean for our ecosystem? And a little drawback to my previous point on indicators. It's almost like part of your, as you're looking at a chart, part of you should look at an indicator as what are other people doing with this indicator, not just what am I going to do with this indicator. So if we're looking at a scenario where money is leaving altcoins, moving into Bitcoin, and then things start looking bad, I don't know what's going to be better. Are people going to feel safer shorting Bitcoin, or are they going to feel safer exiting the market altogether, or are they going to feel safer putting their money into some sort of altcoin pocket, maybe even some altcoin that no one's ever heard of, and try to wait for a 300% pump? I think shorting is probably the highest likely, maybe second to complete exodus. I just don't really see too many people that traders that are going to be interested in parking their money in altcoins if dominance is already looking as terrible as it is and Bitcoin starts to collapse. I just don't see people being hopeful in other crypto assets if Bitcoin breaks down.
All right, so I decided to go and find that chart on TradingView. And I think there could be some interesting analysis done on this on the total market cap. Though I really hope they cap it to like maybe top 100 coins or something by volume or whatever. Like here's the thing, right? Oh, what a surprise.
Mm-hmm.
The last two little peaks are on nines.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And an aggressive 13 sell right now.
Yeah, and we still have a 13 coming. So you see the total market cap, right? And I know that a lot of these altcoins are bullshit, right? I'll be the first one to say it. But Bitcoin just hit 14,000. Bitcoin is very, very close to its all-time high of 20,000, certainly above 50%, right? But if I throw the Fibonacci on here, actually, this should probably be a daily chart so I can get a better peak.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how the nines act here too.
Okay, so if we look at the total market cap with Fibonacci's, we pretty much got rejected at the 38%.
Mm-hmm.
But Bitcoin went all the way past 62%, right? And this, again, this was my presentation from years ago, talking about the ICO bubble, where I said, sure, Bitcoin will probably go to new all-time highs of 20,000 within like a few years. But the total market cap may not go to a new all-time high for like 5 or 6 more years because it'll be mostly Bitcoin. So Bitcoin has to make up for all of this nonsense.
Well, I think we have enough external variables in the world going on for that to happen. I think the bigger thing is, all right, this is kind of one of my big questions. If this is an inorganic market run, then we're going to tank. And what does that mean for the wider market? What does it mean for Bitcoin? Does it mean that we finally rip the Band-Aid off, complete the bear market, and then build organic growth again, and whatever that reset button leads us to? I think that's a big part of why I'm still so skeptical of all this activity. But I do think that there can be some sort of catalyst that pumps Bitcoin well above all this stuff. Everyone that's watching this video probably knows that Bitcoin is worth way more than it's at now. It's just that people have not adopted it to the point where it's going to have the value that we expect it to have. Billions of people in the form of adoption and use. And by adoption, I think we would probably agree in the sense that it would be used as the medium of exchange as well as a store of value, not just accept payment in Bitcoin to sell directly to cash. So that's kind of what I'm waiting for, is that kind of ecosystem to develop. And we have little instances of it, but we don't really have a big, I don't really think we have a hub or anything that's really building that ecosystem from the ground up, other than each other.
Oh. All right, so let's take a quick peek at gold. Not much, no gaps. Gold is right at 1,500, and right now it's still looking bullish to me.
Yeah.
Overextended, that's for damn sure. I would be setting my stop loss, probably somewhere around the 1480 mark, and seeing how high it can go.
I'm actually thinking about buying some gold. I might just want to take, a couple ounces here. I'm not 100% bullish, but and it's not even that I want to miss the boat. It's just that I just think gold is, with all the external variables going on, gold is going to be the first place that the average person runs when they're worried, when they're scared. And anyone that has some sort of understanding, the first thing that they're going to think of when they think economic safe haven is probably going to be gold. So I'm willing to accept the fact that I might lose $300 per ounce if we pull back to, a $1,200 target. And I think gold isn't a terrible buy, but I mean, that's because I'm looking at it on such a large time scale.
Yeah, like I said in my last video, the moment we broke the 38% Fibonacci on a closing basis, I mean, the moment you break it, you can trade that, you can buy it, but you have to close above it in order to be sure that you bought it properly. And you have to buy it because you don't want to miss it. But it needs to close there in order to be longer term bullish. The moment we closed above the 38% Fibonacci, I have now, that's when I expect gold to go to new all-time high with a higher probability than going below 1,000. And again, a lot of people can't comprehend that, right? Because I don't care if I time the bottom. If I time the bottom correctly when it's low enough, that's great. But I'm not going to risk losing 50% of my money. So the $800 target was always the higher probability target until you close above the 38% Fibonacci. And it's only idiots that don't understand trading that will continue to believe that I am calling for 800 gold when gold starts trading at $8,000 an ounce.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've always said that the $800 target is only a target as long as we stay below the 38% Fibonacci. Now that we're above it, it's greater than a 50% chance that we're going to new all-time highs. Now, how do you trade that? I may not trade it. I'm a hodler of gold too. I'm actually going to be looking to sell at critical levels. For example, I did not sell here because I didn't want to sell for, I'm not sure I would have sold for a loss. I think my average buy-in was below that. I think it was like here and stuff. But now that we've gone above it, where would I be looking to sell? Well, I would be looking to sell at the next 9, ideally at the 62% Fibonacci line. If we break this Fibonacci line early, I will keep holding and I'll find another time to sell, right? If we get rejected at this line before we get to a 9, maybe I'll keep holding it, wait for a pullback, then wait for another count to a new 9 higher, right? So I am actually looking to get out of my gold position, and I will try to find a strategic place to do so. That strategic place could be in a couple of weeks. That strategic place could be at 3,000. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty cool with that. I think with especially adding the external narrative going on, this is going to be a quick tangent here. People don't realize that the concept of free trade is supposed to imply that two parties can exchange goods or services to one another in a town, let's say, in a small when that concept was created, it was created before airplanes and shipping containers and all these things that created global transportation much more efficient. So what we have, instead of an actual positive trade situation with other countries, we have a race to see which country is best able to exploit their workforce. And I think that that's going to cause a lot more uncertainty going into the future, especially if we have a native currency of the internet like Bitcoin, right? So I'm definitely bullish on gold for more than one reason. Technically speaking, we're looking great. Again, you're looking at a break through the Fibonacci. I'm also seeing an ascending triangle breakout. I think this has been a bit of a violent move for considering it's gold. I think this is some nice upside action, and I'm willing to accept the fact that gold can continue its upward trajectory, considering all the uncertainty and turmoil going on between the U.S. and China. That's a big part of it.
Yeah. Now, as far as buying gold, in my case, since I did not buy this, since I did not open a gold on trade at 1380, because I wasn't, I don't actively trade right now. Because I didn't open the long trade here, I'm not really interested in opening the long trade there. For the same reason, I wasn't really interested in opening a Bitcoin long trade at 14,000 as I went to it the first time. In a perfect world, I would watch a pullback in gold back to its 38% Fibonacci, 1380, and then bounce off of the Fibonacci with some strength. I would be interested in picking it up at 1400 on a pullback. If the pullback doesn't come, I would be selling my gold at a high. Now, if I had no gold and at all, and I would have taken this break more seriously as a trader because I would have wanted some exposure. But I have exposure to gold. So I'm profiting with this run up, even though the day before this break, I still expected 800. And guess what? If we would have fallen to 800, I would have been a gold buyer. I would have added to my gold position, but I wasn't going to add to my gold position anywhere between 1,000 and 1,400. I was just going to wait. I was either going to add to my gold position at 800 or sell the gold that I have up here. I wasn't really interested in adding more on this breakout.
Is that a phase 2 hyperwave line down there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I was going to say
that's a phase 2.
So I think we agreed. Gold, I mean, it appears to have hyperwaved, right? I never really got to sit down and talk with Tyler about gold, but is there any dispute in your mind, as maybe one of the leaders on hyperwave, that gold did hyperwave and we're having potentially now one of two anomalies that might not reach phase 1 between gold and Bitcoin?
Correct. Now, the fact that it rebounded here is very problematic from a hyperwave perspective. Had gold bounced off of phase 2, it would have been, one of those funky hyperwaves that rarely does occur. Now, I was just like with Bitcoin, I was never with Tyler on gold going back to its phase 1, which would have been about $400. To me, the lowest gold could ever go was 800. But I would have been a buyer under 1,000. And but it looks like it's going up. But again, a hyperwave is not like this hyperwave in gold. It's not, the target of 400 remains the $400 target until you break the prior all-time high.
Mm-hmm.
So if Tyler was here, he'd say gold is still expected to go down. And the only way you can be sure it's not going to go down to 400 is if it breaks the all-time high.
Yeah, I just keep thinking about sugar, with all these scenarios where we have, Bitcoin, I think more so because we just barely missed it, that landing right into phase 1. So I think it's, that's the thing is, I'm talking about potentially buying gold. And at even this price range, some people could say I'm a complete noob and make it a big mistake. But the point is, gold is it's a hedge. It's a big hedge, and I'd rather get in, I guess, over time, and throw a couple grand every couple months and into
Right.
gold
Now,
because you just don't know.
here's the thing, right? Like the way I am going to be bullish on Bitcoin, if we start going above this, because we've had some significant pullbacks, right? Right now, what gold has did, if I go back to the weekly chart of Bitcoin, what gold has did, what gold just did, I don't have the other Fibonacci, right? So it was a Fibonacci from here to here, right? When Bitcoin broke that 32% Fibonacci line, sorry, 38%. So we're talking a 40% going back up, right? So 20K to 3K, that's 17,000. 40% of 17,000, that's that's the difference. So if I divide like 16 by 2, let's say it's 8K, right? So when Bitcoin was breaking here, I might have to draw the Fibonacci. So look, if I draw this in, where is my, there's the 38. It's near the other 38, right?
Yeah, interesting.
So here. So right now, what has happened to Bitcoin is that we broke through that 38% Fibonacci and went straight up. I have no interest in buying it here unless I am literally buying at the break. I am not interested in buying it after that because I don't know where it's going to top.
Mm-hmm.
But after it tops and consolidates and then starts to break that, then I'm interested. So what that means is, if I go back to the gold chart, while I have zero interest in buying gold right here, if gold pulls back to, let's say it doesn't pull back to 1400 where I want to buy it. If gold pulls back to 1450, then goes to 15, then pulls back to 1475, then goes to 15 and starts to break 15, then I'm interested in buying gold again. I'm not interested in buying 15 now, but I would be interested in buying 15 in the future if it gets stuck between 14 and 15. But if we go straight up to 1600, then I repeat the same thing as of 1600. Like, it doesn't matter to me when I buy gold. What matters to me is I want to buy gold with a high probability that my trade isn't going to be down 30% a week later.
Yeah, I think that's a valid concern. Gold is, I mean, it definitely went through a hyperwave, and as far as statistical anomalies are concerned, we really only have a small handful. So I still think that the lower end of the spectrum is on the table. It's kind of weird. Where do you draw the line? Is phase one really it, or is phase 1.2 enough, right? So I think that's kind of the question with gold to me is, what is this? And that's the question that I'm kind of waiting for the exact answer is. And again, to me, this is a little bit of a different technical situation. I love your fibs. I know I use them from time to time, but I still look at this as an ascending triangle breakout and nothing more just yet. I mean, you could see dating back to 2016, the beginning of kind of an ascending pattern across the bottom of those gradually higher lows. So to me, this is just an ascending triangle breakout until otherwise noted. Right now, I'm willing to play this a little bit to hedge any further upside action, but I still think that if this is an ascending triangle breakout and it appears to be it's a 10% move approximately to the upside from the 38 fib. So I would say I'm not 100% confident, but then again, 10% is not bad for something like gold over 5-6 weeks.
All right, guys. Hey, I'm gonna again head over to tonebase.com. You can check out my calendar. We're gonna fill all this out tomorrow or the next day for most of the year. Check out the upcoming events, the financial boot camp. Well, I'm not actually calling it that. The financial summit in Bali, where myself, Willie Woo, Van Zen, Ugly, Socrates, Leah, we're all getting together. It's our quasi vacation, but we are opening it up to the public. It's basically a week with us, and you can learn as much as can handle, and collaborate as well. You can show us stuff. You can teach us. Another option. Uh, but check that out. Also, Unconfiscatable. If you want to support this YouTube channel, please check out the affiliate page. Other than that, check out the workshops. Yep, equity options. I'm going to be teaching that for the first time ever. I got to put that together, and I'll be in Dallas next week. You can see that from the calendar. Once again, I've been joined on this episode by Joe Sahas from Block TV. Thanks again for joining me, Joe. I got to start packing. I got a flight to Toronto tomorrow, and we do have to wrap this up, but feel free to give your closing thoughts.
No, just always a pleasure. Follow me on Twitter at Joe Saz. Follow up Block TV News. We try to provide the best analysis as well, and it's always a great pleasure working with you, Tone.
All right. Thank you. And we will see you all on the next one, guys.